Why is there a tight air between India and China? India and China, both the countries are rich in their historical heritage. In fact, Shaolin Kung Fu came to China by an Indian called Bodhidharma, who invented Kung Fu. India had conquered China centuries ago without a single soldier, via Buddha. Nevertheless, coming to the issue of tension between the countries, Chinese are now stuck in their own nets. We must understand the background of India's external policies for this. Since the time of Cold War, India was kind of aligned with Soviet Union. Well, it was because of Nehru's policies and his dearness towards the Soviet Union. The BJP, which was from the beginning of its existence in the assembly, advocated American friendship, naturally turned to America when it came to power in India. And after the downfall of Soviet Union, Russia was no more a powerful nation as before. Well, weakness is not a luxury. Nobody wishes for it. But you have to know the facts and act accordingly. So now Russia's condition was somewhat similar to India's. It became an important decision maker of the region and lost the crown of world superpower. Also, India, with caution, kept ties with Russia. Americans were obviously the leader of arms and weapons supplies, and Russia was India's most loyal partner. Now comes the part where India's policies came in handy. India signed treaties with America and bought the things which Russia did not provide, and signed treaties with Russia to buy where Americans were not interested in supplying. Not just that, even after understanding that Indian ties are going a bit close with America, Russia signed some more treaties concerning nuclear power plants and a few more military agreements, also signed deals regarding petroleum industries. Meanwhile, Defense Ministry of India shook hands with countries like Germany and Israel to obtain military equipments and technology. But even Russia had this flux to oppose India's ties with America for obvious reasons. So it went to shake hands with Pakistan, which is a primary enemy state of India. By then, India and Russia had reached 70 years of bilateral ties. Modi took a chance and called for celebrations. But before that, Indian ambassador had raised the issue of increasing Russian help to Pakistan, which Russia acknowledged. Had Russia sided with Pakistan then, it would have created problems in India. Now comes the part where Chinese eyes become red. It could not tolerate healthy ties with Russia and the United States simultaneously. They raised an issue that India was betraying Russia. So much so that a Chinese newspaper said that India was a greedy lame duck and it can do anything to fill its needs. So why is China objecting Russia's friendship with India? What has it got to do with that? India and America, though, have a better friendship now. It does not have any historical similarities, but it's not the case with China. Earlier, China and Russia were somewhat birds of the same feathers called communism. Let's face it, it's not working anymore. Communism was a trial method and it should have evolved to survive. Moreover, India's bond with the United States was a strategic move, keeping in mind the war-mongering attitudes of China and Pakistan. Also, America established an India Rapid Reaction Cell to cooperate with India. This was the first of its kind. With increasing ties between India and the United States, China or Pakistan could not dare to oppose the United States. Meanwhile, Japan and the other island Asian countries had increased their ties with India. With Indian ties going tighter between America and Russia, China could not sit still. To be exact, the long-term goal of China towards India is to destabilize it. It had already targeted India by establishing naval bases around India, which is commonly called string of pearls. Now it went even further. It started moving the China-Pakistan economic corridor faster and started laying roads. This road came over Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, to which India severely objected. Now even India could not be quiet. It was many steps ahead of China in terms of strategy. It had already started its external affairs in South China Sea. India's relations with Japan, Taiwan and other Far Eastern countries were already growing fast and tight. This was enough to make the Chinese angry, but it could not influence the Far East as India did, and had no option but to keep out. India is trying to enter NSG, that is Nuclear Suppliers Group, so that it can have self-sufficiency in power, that is electricity. It has large deposits of thorium through which it can have self-sufficiency. But Chinese are lobbying to stop this in every possible way. But India's attempt to enter NSG is almost becoming a realization. But why is there a border issue with India and China? China, from the days of Mao Zedong, had been propagating that the McMahon Line, which separates Indian northeastern borders with China, is wrong, and historically Arunachal Pradesh belonged to China. Though technically Tibet had to share their border with India, but after Chinese occupation, China claimed that the Arunachal Pradesh belonged to Tibet, and now since China has swallowed Tibet, Arunachal Pradesh belonged to them. But that's not the case. Culturally and historically, Arunachal Pradesh always belonged to India. If that's the case, historically, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and even Burma belonged to India, and even Tibet, historically. So, should it bang the drums and claim that those territories belong to India? Anyways, to claim its so-called historical borders, China went to war with India in 1962, where India lost the battle because of the stupidity made by the then head of the state. He did not authorize the airstrikes where China was actually weak at that time. India lost Aksai Chin of Kashmir region during this time. And after American intervention, the Chinese stopped their expansion and went back. Well, according to bazaar gossip, America warned China that they'll bomb the hell out of them if they don't retreat. And that's why they retreated. Anyways, after signing a treaty in 1993 and 1996, both India and China agreed to respect the line of actual control, which includes Aksai Chin within Chinese borders. Usually there is a pattern in the Chinese border expansion in the Indo-Himalayan belt. First they will clear the trees, rocks or anything so that they will make a small walk path. Then they start clearing the walk path and make it bigger. And finally they start making roads so that military vehicles or equipments are movable. And then finally they'll claim that the land belongs to them. India initially plans to take down the enemy in a psychological war. It isolates the enemy from other countries first, and then it strikes the intellect of the enemy. It's highly effective. Its plan is to strike after making the enemy lose their morale. So with all this, China developed its age-old strategy of expansion to get back Arunachal Pradesh. It targeted Bhutan, which is a small country next to Arunachal Pradesh between India and China, and started to build roads illegally in Doklam region in Bhutan for its army to move in, to which Bhutan and India opposed. But all these attempts of China were a part of its long-term goal, which is destabilizing India. However, keeping all these issues in a box, Chinese were receiving the exact and even harder countermeasures from India. When it started the naval base in Sri Lanka, India wrecked the government supporting the Chinese intrusions and formed a government in Sri Lanka which embraced India. When it started the China-Pakistan corridor, India started promoting the separatist people from Gilgit-Baltistan to oppose the corridor. This in turn created problems to Chinese investments and intentions. To suppress all these, China took many failed measures. It promoted terrorism in Kashmir and promoted Naxalism in India. It also promoted propagation of projecting failure of Indian government via some of its allies in India like communist parties and many other opposition brigades. But it was not fruitful. When Pakistan and China agreed to build a naval base in Pakistan, India had already built a naval base in Chabahar in Iran, right next to Pakistan. And during the time of Prime Minister's visit to United States and Israel, China threatened India by creating problems in Doklam region of Bhutan. But China was easily scared when ships from Japan and the United States started their military exercises in South China Sea. So basically, China's attempt to destabilize India is going on, but with India's strategic attempts, China is not able to succeed in the strategy war.